Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and broadcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with David Finkelstein, founder and CEO at BDEX. What's new, David?
Hey, Jessie, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Doing well here. Been a very busy day. I think I went nonstop from one call and meeting and Zoom to the next. Look, we have a guest today that we've been trying to get on the show for a while. So excited to get this one started.
Absolutely. Well, we're lucky yet again for the 70th time, since this is our 70th episode of Deconstructing Data, to welcome on Adam Heimlich, founder and CEO of Chalice Custom Algorithms. He's a digital advertising veteran. Adam spearheaded the move toward custom algorithms, empowering brands to optimize their ad buying strategies. So let me go ahead and bring him on. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Hey, Adam, it's great to have you on the show. Been wanting to get you on here for a while, so glad we got you today. Looking forward to getting this thing kicked off, but I'm going to ask you to kick it off and give our listeners a little bit of background on you and, what led you to Chalice and a little bit about Chalice's solution.
Yeah, great, thanks. So I started my career publisher side, pre-digital. I worked for newspapers. From the beginning of digital, I worked at agencies, mostly serving large advertisers. I always worked on the new thing. I was gravitated toward search when it came out, and then social, definitely programmatic when it came out, and then video and CTV. And around 5 years ago, I came to the conclusion that there is a gap in the marketplace for large advertisers who were doing something other than what most platform algorithms did, right? So I saw that a lot of big advertisers had a choice between doing things very manually or using the platform algorithm, which didn't really do what they wanted. And they usually landed in the middle, like a combination of manual processes and using the algorithm that today I would call steering against the autopilot. So I knew from the beginning of digital that custom algorithms were possible. And I started talking to my friends in tech and data science who told me that the revolution in cloud computing and AI infrastructure made it possible to create custom algorithm software that can make it relatively quick and easy for any advertiser to apply a custom algorithm as long as they have enough data. So that's what we did. The company's about 3.5 years old. We're growing about 3x a year. And we have algorithms for a number of use cases, some vertical specific, some cross-vertical, some specific to just one client, right? We'll use any data and drive to any outcome and really resolve this issue of an advertiser having an algorithm that's not built for them and automating decisions that they wouldn't make themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, love the journey. Interested, and I think our listeners will be really interested to understand when you talk about custom algorithms, what does that mean? Like, can you sort of give people some examples of what those custom algorithms look like versus what they might be using today?
Yeah, sure. So algorithms are just decisions, right? What we call algorithms in ad tech are automated decisions. So people feel like they're in control of decisions because maybe they enter a bid, maybe they enter modifications on the bid. They have a lot of settings, right? That you can bid on this and not on that. You can control the audience, but there's actually a lot more to control, like what you bid and when you bid, and especially your expectations of what something's worth and how much you should pay for it are very limited, right? The algorithm is all the time predicting what an ad opportunity is worth to you, should be worth to you, and how much you should pay for it based on the limited information you gave them. And if those decisions are based on your data and you're in control of deciding, right, and your values, right? If your values are in the equations of what is this impression worth to me, what am I willing to pay for it, the decisions are a lot different. So what we call custom algorithms are a set of bid decisions that are based on your impressions, your data, your analytics, whether that data lives in the platform or not, right? We'll take varying sources of data that people used to have to triangulate, and we'll make them flow in a circle, right? With kind of a custom algorithm powering the flywheel, dynamically iterating on these valuations and predictions to help them pay exactly the right amount for them and be able to sort of take their hands off the wheel a little bit, knowing that the algorithm is making the decisions that they programmed it to make, and they can focus on more strategic stuff. Does that help? Does that explain it?
Yeah, I think it helps, but let's dive deeper. One of the sort of the first topic is you're saying custom algorithms are the new frontier in reducing corporate risk. So let's talk about that and big tech dependency. So tell our listeners a little bit about what you mean here.
Yeah, so I mean, adopting the new thing often seems risky, right? You're taking the plunge and trying a new way of working. So we love the chance to talk about the reduction in risk that comes with adopting custom algorithms. So there's a lot of noise in the market of things that people might not think are connected. There's like bad publisher quality, like MFA sites showing up on foreign sites that are sanctioned by the US government, showing up on children's content, right? There's a lot of ESG and SPO conversations, right? Are my supply sources diverse enough? Are they wasting carbon? Am I answering duplicate bid requests? And then the question of, is my data secure, right? Can I easily switch buying platforms and take the knowledge with me? Is my data being pooled or leaking to my competitors through these platforms? So all of these conversations go on in the industry and people are worried about them different amounts. But from the point of view of Chalice and our customers, I would say, is all of these are a result of an algorithm making decisions that are black box to you, that you wouldn't make, that you don't have the power to audit, right? And if you're auditing every decision that the platform makes, it can solve all of these problems. You could get the level of diversity across publishers you want. You could clean up the supply as much as you want. You could insist that there's no data going into your decisions that is not your data, and nobody else is deciding off your data, right? It's not leaking. And then you gain a lot of maturity in the market as your team starts to work with AI tools. So we hope that those reductions in risk outweigh the increases in risk, which is like trying something new, trying something that might be a shiny object that amounts to nothing, right? I think AI is not like the metaverse, but the metaverse hangs in some marketers' minds as something they invested in and shouldn't have. And the risk of more accountability, right? When you're outsourcing the algorithm, you at least have deniability. You can say, I didn't know it was doing that. When you take on custom algorithms, and this is true of our customers, it's for advertisers who want the accountability for all the decisions that are made on their behalf.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So we talk a lot about things like, and you talked about like MFA sites and things like that, and ads appearing on the wrong sites. We talk a lot also about, ad fraud, bots, click farms, and all kinds of other things. Curious to see how, applying custom algorithms might be able to help brands, sort of defeat that, nefarious, ad fraud that's out there as well.
Yeah, to me, a lot of the industry approaches and conversations about fraud and bad content are like very intense focus on the symptoms without addressing the disease, right?
Yeah.
The disease is bad measurement, right? If you're optimizing, if you have a very powerful AI machine optimizing to clicks or last touch conversions, then it should put you on garbage sites because they do get last touch credit. They do generate clicks, right? So the secret is to have an algorithm that's actually optimizing, trained to optimize to what your business values, right? Actual sales, incremental sales, store sales, the lifetime value of your customers, right? Brands have data on all these things. And with a custom algorithm, you can make that the outcome. And then instead of going in and try to surgically remove all of the fraud and bad sites, the algorithm will learn to stay away from them because they don't actually drive value.
Yeah, that's awesome. That makes sense. And we talk about this AI. Just I think that in the future there's so many different applications that I think we'll see developed over time that are designed to combat these things more effectively than the so-called black box, right? Because the reality is that black box, that algorithm that is in that black box is not designed to, to optimize to that, because let's face it, the owner of that black box benefits from those, that ad fraud. Every ad impression that's generated, every click that's generated is generating revenue for somebody. So, I think it's important to understand that these sort of applications that come about, whether it be through, a custom algorithm or some AI that is, created to, optimize against, ad fraud and optimize towards a positive outcome is good for the future.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be nefarious, right? Our partners at the DSPs are not saying, how can we get people on garbage sites? Their focus is on having a scaled engineered solution, which means that no matter how many customers we get, it's going to require the same staff, right? The same processes that can run without human intervention. And at the time that they were built, it was a requirement that everyone do data science the same way, to the same goals, using the same features, right? The focus on personal data came out of that time, where the ID was the most important signal for algorithms. And just times have changed, right? We represent a new wave of software that's highly configurable, right? That will scale to many, many customers, but it's just a lot more flexible. And that's not, that Chalice was happy to build on that sort of infrastructure, but the revolution is cloud. The billions and billions of dollars that have been invested in cloud computing infrastructure. It changes how storage is done. It changes how calculations are done. It changes how data is ingested and processed. These are the things that have made it possible to configure, the data set and workflow for any algorithm you want. So we think we're early in a wave of scalable software solutions that are also very configurable, flexible, can do something especially for one customer that's totally different than what they're doing for other customers.
Yeah, and like you said, to your point, the cost of data storage and processing has come down so significantly that we can do this at scale.
Yeah, it happened really fast. Even in the 4 years we've been in business, we've seen it's very competitive. There's a bunch of cloud infrastructure companies very fiercely competing for the dollars of especially AI companies. So there's a lot of muscle behind it. It's not going to go away. It ain't the metaverse.
Yeah, and it's good for businesses like yours, like ours, because the bringing those costs down enables us to do a lot more, with less, actually. And bringing a lot more data and a lot more processing in ways, like you said, we couldn't do just a few years ago.
I think people will look back at this era that's kind of ending of VC-funded scale software solutions as kind of oppressive.
Interesting.
I think what's coming will be a lot more fun and more creative.
Well, it's a great point. That's an excellent point. The costs have come down so much to be able to do so much, that it doesn't take $20 million to start a company that is going to do something really incredible, right? You can still do some amazing things with a lot of the, ability, with the capabilities that that are turnkey today, that were never turnkey before. You had to build them, right? And today, all of this data storage and data collaboration and processing and AI, it's all off the shelf right now. So the sky is the limit. And you
pay as you go. That's the real magic. Everything's pay as you go.
Yeah.
And companies are popping up left and right. There's a new, app all the time. But on a different note, let's transition into data collaboration and how sharing insights drive incremental performance. Could you kick us off here, Adam?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about store sales, an area we've been working in a lot in auto and CPG. We've developed algorithms to optimize to shelf inventory and inventory on the lot of auto dealers. And this really bypasses a lot of the attribution problems in digital for offline sales. As I was describing behind the call, it gets very granular and opens up a lot of interesting conversations, right? You start from just optimizing to inventory. It's like, oh, we have too many cars here and not enough cars there, so move some ads here to move those cars. Or there's candy rotting on the shelf in Philadelphia, let's get some more ads there. But then you could sort of work that upstream to the actual to making better predictions of how to distribute the product in the first place, right? So we see like that AI for advertising will start to expand into these upstream issues of not media supply, but product supply paths, and that sort of optimization. There's a lot of implications for retail too, where one of the biggest challenges in retail is selling through and knowing how to make for the fall season and spring season, back to school and summer. So we really see potential for really cross-department penetration of AI solutions that are sort of linked together. So that's really interesting. But the challenge for the organization, it brings in data sets that are usually siloed all over the organization. So we definitely try to fly the flag of collaboration within companies and among companies and their partners, because bringing these data together will start to create predictability and reveal things about firms' businesses that they had no way of otherwise knowing.
Yeah, we've had some really interesting conversations with some people on the show as well about data collaboration and data in the distribution of data, and sort of the difficulty in a lot of these. The bigger the company, the more difficult it becomes for them to manage their own data and try to centralize that data, or do they decentralize it? And it's like, we've had some really interesting conversations about the benefits of both, actually. But obviously the importance of sort of synchronizing that data across the organization to make sure that it's not out of sync, so that you can act on it efficiently. Like you said, understanding where is the sell through, so that you can then manage that from a advertising and marketing point of view. This data is coming from multiple different places, right? You're managing data from across the organization through finance and distribution, all the way to advertising and marketing.
Yeah, I mean, in CPG, the supply chain is so complex. Like their customers are really retailers. Retailers have limited even ability to give them data on how stuff is selling. And there's so many new inventory-based data solutions coming on board. It's like, I think it will change a lot in the next few years. We talked to one the other day that's like flying drones around retail stores to take video of the shelves so they could have the freshest data on what's on the shelf. Stores all over the world.
That's wild.
That is pretty wild. Well, anything more on data collaboration either of you would like to share before we transition into AI?
I don't know. I think this is mostly a B2B audience, but I feel like there's work to be done with consumers for them to understand how data is used in prediction for business, and how to balance their security and privacy with the commercial need, for competition, and even for the country to keep up in this technology. It's more of a challenge for a liberal democracy where people have rights than for countries that can just take everyone's data and make predictions. So I think we have a tougher job in North America and Europe to convince people that they have an interest here, and that they should look to strike a balance between valid commercial activity that's much more beneficial and harmless, and their privacy, which doesn't have to be violated for most commercial uses.
That's a great point.
It's an excellent point. Again, something we talk about, data privacy, right? We talk about that a lot as well.
Yeah.
And we're big proponents of consumers understanding how their data is being used, and building sort of that relationship between the brands that they choose to have relationships with. We think that that's super important. To your point, the brands need that data. The more data that they have about their customers, the consumers that love and buy their products or use their products, it's important, because it helps them serve that customer better, reach that customer better. Anything that gets in the way of that actually costs them money, and then who pays for that? The consumer, right?
Right.
And so I think it's important for the consumer to understand, but at the same time for the brand to sort of communicate that value exchange and say, hey, we're going to hold your data safe. We're going to keep it safe, but if you give it to us, here's the value you're going to get from it, and we're going to be able to improve how we work together with you. We think that's super important. I think that, all of the sort of, political issues around data privacy are sort of overshadowed. They're overshadowing, I should say, the importance of actually that data and the use of the data to the consumer. And I don't think the consumer always understands, so the consumer might see that, hey, you're collecting my data and think that's a bad thing. But if there was sort of a more clarity and transparency as to how that data is being used and why and how it benefits the consumer, I think more consumers would be a lot more comfortable sharing that data, and especially if they didn't feel like it was going to be stolen and leaked and all that other security issues that come up, unfortunately. But I think that it's important. It's an important thing to talk about. It's an important thing for brands to talk about as well.
Yeah, I try to demystify.
What was that?
I try to demystify.
Yeah.
Explain to people how it works, how their Netflix recommendations are created, and
I agree 100%. We're always trying to explain these things to people to make sure that they understand the value that they're actually getting, because they don't understand the value that they're getting necessarily unless, a brand says, here's a coupon. We want to collect some, data from you or something like that. But without doing that, just saying that, hey, this site is going to collect some data about you, and yes or no. And then there's like a 20-page, document that nobody's going to read about it. You're not really, giving the consumer, a really good, communication level of communication, a good way to make that decision. And I think that we're always trying to encourage brands to, I think it was Gap, that had on their website something that says, hey, we're collecting data about you, but guess what? We're going to use it to make better decisions about, showing you things that will fit, colors that you like, styles that you'll enjoy, whatever. And honestly, when you read that, you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'll allow that.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference than just showing somebody a 20-page form about, what they might be collecting about you and what they might be doing about it.
I would go further. The law I support is data portability. I don't know if there's one in committee right now, but we all, if you're old enough, you lived through this when the cell phone companies would lock you in by your number. You'd have to get a new cell phone. You'd have to change your phone number, and no one wanted to do it. And they said, well, your phone number should be portable. And, it greatly improved competition. And it should be like that with the data they collect. Like when you leave your phone company, when you sign up for Facebook, you should have the right to take that data with you and move it to a competitor. It's yours, and it would give the companies the right incentives, like you're saying. Like Gap is explaining it, but everyone would be motivated to explain what they're doing with the data if they had to worry about consumers taking it with them.
Yeah, it's a great point.
It is a great point. And with that, I'm going to transition us into AI and digital media buying, which I don't know if we've talked about. I guess we have talked about that on many different levels, but specifically why machines may know your audience better than you do. So could you kick us off on your take with this, Adam?
Yeah, definitely. This is a really big issue for advertisers. The agency and brand standard of buying media is, there's some optimization to it, but the most important piece of the process is the design of the audience for targeting. And that very old technology is used for that. It's usually based on panels, and they have names like striving suppliers, or like they have cute names for the segments that they create out of all this panel data, and they try to bring it to the digital market. And it's very antiquated and not in brands' interests to use anymore. I've used these my whole career. Like we were selling milk, and we had a custom segment of milk buyers, right? There's always in-market auto. There's definitely custom segments for weight loss and exercise, for every health. A lot of work goes into it. I don't mean to poo-poo the work when I'm just saying it's just the nature of technology. There's a much better way. So we have actually compared things like these segments of, these predefined audience segments of, say, milk buyers to a custom algorithms approach. So if you attach the milk buyer audience to your bidder has a binary signal. Everyone is in the audience of milk buyers or not. If they're in, you pay for the data. If not, you don't. So you could throw that audience away, and you could apply a custom algorithm against your actual milk buying data and say, score everyone in the United States, or even every ad opportunity in the United States, which is millions per second. So you could score billions and billions of ad opportunities and the people behind them for the propensity to buy milk next week, right? So we've actually done this and then, backed it out, profiled them into the actual audience that it is, and compared it to the audience. We made a bunch of graphics about this to make it really clear to people that the audiences tend to be really stereotypical, right? The actual audiences are more gender diverse, they're more ethnically diverse, they're more regionally diverse, right? This panel data and the manual processes are not capturing the actual diversity of who buys national distributed products in any given week. So it's great to see. Like, brands should be very happy to see this, to know that their potential audience is much more than their planning process accounted for, and opens up a lot of opportunities in creative and product design and partnerships and distribution when they see who is actually responding to their product and the ads such as they are. So we strongly encourage people to look at these comparisons and make as much noise as we can about it, right? Custom algorithm might sound very like a shiny object and something futuristic and black box, but right, this usage is this very human, getting to the truth of looking under the hood of math occurring in real time to get to your actual audience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's, it's something that we live by as well. We talk to a lot of brands about using modeling technology that we have actually as well, where we model their first party data. And so, they literally can say, always give the example, if you're Best Buy and you're trying to find more people to buy big screen TVs, let's just look at your big screen TV buyers. Let's just grab a whole bunch of them, put it into our platform. Our platform builds a model against those and then goes back out into the ecosystem and says, okay, let's find 1 million more people that look just like them and activate that audience. So now you have this custom audience that's literally built from your first party data. I'd love to, it would be interesting for you and I to do an experiment like that, to take that audience versus, some, panel audience, and see what that looks like versus, an audience using your algorithms. I think it'd be pretty cool to run those kinds of tests, actually.
Yeah. From doing this a couple of years, like, it's very strange. Like, you're dealing with like non-human intelligence for real. And, it doesn't think in stories. And the outputs, like, your mind tries to tell a story about what's going on. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. I remember earlier, you mentioned flat screen TVs, and what always pops for them in the algorithm is military addresses, right? Because soldiers, service people have their room and board paid, but they have a salary. They tend to be young. So the first thing they buy is the latest entertainment, video games and movies and stuff. So that's one, like, your mind could tell a story around the data that popped up. But I've been looking at these for years now. And more often than not, like, the mind is just flummoxed. Like, why is the 3 o'clock hour 8 times as good as the 4 o'clock hour? Like that all the time, and weird combinations of site and zip code that are like, this site is terrible except for in these 5 zip codes. So you never find out. But if you can, it's really valuable. And even if you can't, there's some value to it, and there's always the pursuit to try to get a story to it someday.
Yeah. I mean, to your point earlier too about machines knowing, better than you do. We've seen it as well. A lot of brands come in and they think that they know who their customer is, right? And they come to us, this is our customer avatar, right? And where'd you get that information from? Well, panels or whatever it is, and then you run some analytics on it, on their existing customers, on their first party data, and it doesn't match up, right? And you're just wondering, okay, well, you're targeting the wrong people. And a lot of these, like you said, a lot of those sort of black box platforms are designed for you to target based on, specific criteria, but that criteria isn't specific to you, right? It's specific, but it's not specific to you. And so I think, and like you said, we're at a time right now where I think the future is going to be, mass improvement in ad targeting based on, the capabilities that we're building today. It's going to be pretty cool.
I think it swings a lot more importance to creative than it's had in the digital era so far, right? Because like we're always looking like, this is the audience for the ads you're running now, right? The machine can't do, what if you ran a different ad?
Yeah.
Like something really common is people think they made an ad for young people, and it's like, nope, young people don't like this one. Old people, like we've seen that a bunch of times. But we want to find the advertiser who will try their product to appeal to young people, right? So they need more AI, they need more production tools or different production pipelines so they can make more ads and find something that works on the audience they're trying to chase.
Yeah, I think the future is, let's look 5-10 years down the road. I think that, there was a lot of human experimenting, right? A/B testing, A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing, right? Across, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? But I think that, the reality is machines will do that for you in the future. So it'll be much more optimized.
They're not great at the what ifs and the creativity. I don't think they'll replace that part. I really think that's going to be
on the creative side. Yeah,
a job for humans in advertising. They'll do a lot of optimization. They'll point you in the right direction. They're not about to make great ads.
Yeah. I don't think you're going to see like a mid journey for advertising, just creating, the creatives for you.
Yeah, they're parroting. They're parroting and there's value in them.
Yeah.
So I take it on our next topic, tech stack, you're not going to have some tool that makes the creative for you as your favorite tool in your tech stack. But could you tell us, to transition into something that we do ask all of the guys who come on Deconstructing Data, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Yeah, well, I'll just say what we do love an generative AI creative startup called Memorable. I think it's Memorable.io is their website. We love working with them, and they don't really make ads from scratch. It's more ad optimization, but they can do things like optimize ads for different audiences based on a really good training data set. There's a couple of young data scientists who founded the company out of their work at MIT and Harvard, and I love watching their journey in ad tech straight out of academia. But our stack, so we're big partners with Trade Desk. We definitely fly the Trade Desk flag. They're investors in Chalice. We love the platform and the team. They're amazing partners. That said, we're DSP agnostic. We also work with Google DV360, great team, Beeswax we also love, and Microsoft Xandr, AppNexus, another great partner of ours. MediaMath too, who will rise again. Our backend is mostly AWS, Snowflake, and Databricks. Everyone on the team communicates with Slack. We present in Canva. We love Canva. Notion for the operations team, including marketing. And one most people don't know, Clary. I think the product's now called Clary Copilot. It used to be Wingman. It records calls, so partner calls and sales calls. It makes a low definition video and gives us a transcript. It's searchable. It's very, very handy for people who missed calls if you want to see things again at a call. So we'll call out that as a favorite tool.
All great tools.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And since we have still 10 more minutes, we have some time for some post-topic questions. So Adam, if you could go back to when you first came into this industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
To go entrepreneur sooner. Yeah, so I did a whole career and then went an entrepreneur at age 50. And I think in the whole last 10 years of my career, I was unhappy. Like I had the energy of an entrepreneur and the hunger to found, and I didn't recognize that for what it was. It was just sort of a discomfort and dissatisfaction and surprise that it seemed like to me like lack of vision and lack of ambition of those around me. Now I see it different. Those people were all fine. I was just a budding entrepreneur, and it was my time to found. So yeah, I probably should have started sooner.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. It's certainly it's a tough jump to make. I took the easy route. I did it straight out of college. So
More an entrepreneur. Probably looking at people like you and just saying like, I'm not like that. So I'm not like those guys who are naturally entrepreneurs. But yeah, I'm an entrepreneur in my own way. That's what I would tell my young self.
Well, it's a lot easier to do it then because I could live with my parents and didn't have to worry about any expenses. I didn't have a family to care for and all that stuff to support. So it was kind of easier to make that jump then, and I can definitely see how it would be much more difficult to make later in life, especially as you gain more responsibilities and it kind of becomes more difficult to make that jump.
Yeah. Yes, I can relate. And going off of that, are there any lessons you've learned along the way from past jobs or, your current role that you think everyone should know?
Well, I don't know if everyone should know that. Most people aren't like me, but I would say in my path, like the way I came up, like I had certain tendencies that I think served me really well. One is that I immersed myself in data. Like I was fascinated with data, and I didn't care how long I looked at data or studied data or made additional charts. Like I thought that was the most important thing I could be doing as a marketer, and I think that served me well. I always learned to use the tools, right? If we were using a tool, I learned how it worked. I learned how it actually functioned, how the engineering behind it functioned, as much as I could about why it was built the way it was built. And as much of the functionality that the tool offered, I tried to learn. That served me well, especially at the beginning. I think it's been sort of a dark age the last 10 years with Google and Facebook being the tools that every marketer uses, that you can't go that deep in them. They're sort of limited, and I'm glad that more interesting tools are coming to the forefront now. And last, like I think like sort of like I was saying before, like I think when you're experiencing like frustration over gaps in the marketplace, or over something that you feel should exist and doesn't, or that there's something nobody is doing, right? When people need help and they're not being helped. Like I always noticed those and thought about a business for them. And I think that's really good training, even if you're not ready for being an entrepreneur. When something doesn't seem right, or it seems like there's a space between what's available and what people need, like you should study that. It might really be something.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's how some of the great companies got started, right? I mean, they saw a gap in the industry and said, how can I fill that?
Yeah, what would it look like? And then wait a long time to think about what a VC would think of it. Get pretty far along first.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Adam, in closing, how could the listeners find you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Oh yeah, big on LinkedIn. Check it out every day. I'm on Twitter under my own name. Email is adam@Chalice AI. Then the Chalice AI website has an intake form for anyone interested in the company. I'll also be at Programmatic I/O in New York this week. Chalice has a suite in the hotel, so feel free to make a meeting, come by the suite, say hi, talk biz, or algorithms, or anything else.
Sounds good. Well, Adam, this has been great. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great talking to you, David. Thank you, Jesse.
Absolutely. And real quick before we go, audience members, we hope you'll check out BeatX's Omni IQ. Simply go to beatx.com, click the try for free button, or use this QR code if you're watching on video. And that'll take you to Omni IQ, where you can set up an account without a credit card, and it's free to try. And so just upload a list of your first party customer data, a CSV file, and you can get some data on your data. So you'll see birth year, household income, and gender all complementary. So also, we'd love to hear from listeners. You can always reach us at info@bdex.com if there's someone you think we should have on the show, or if you have some feedback that you'd like to share with us. Otherwise, thanks again, Adam, so much for joining us. And I guess we'll see you next week, everybody else.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.